everyone, it's Priscilla and you're watching Humanity Unlocked. Today we have Chris Mailloux here and I'm just going to be asking him the usual questions that I do. So, how are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me here. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. It's been a long weekend, but it's good. You want to tell me about like how you got started with comedy?
Okay, I first got started in comedy roughly about a year and 6 months ago. I came across, somebody recommended an open mic to me, one of the local comedians. He said, hey, you told me you're interested in trying this out. There's a show tonight if you want to do it. So I just said, you know what, I'll do it. I spent that 24 hours writing down a set, practicing, nervous, and then I did it and haven't looked back since. I've been in love with it ever since.
Awesome. So how many shows have you done so far? Do you know?
I had actually, 2 months ago, I had actually kind of like summed up all the shows I've done, and within my first year I did roughly around like 60 or 70. So like I had a strong number for my first year. Yeah.
That's cool. So were you like Robert? Did you get to go to like Detroit and do some shows, or just like everything's local?
I've done a couple shows in Detroit, usually with Rob. I'd probably say about 3 shows in Detroit. It's a interesting crowd over there because some of the jokes that work so well here might not land as well there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, I'm just going to get right into the questions.
Okay.
So have you ever been in a fight?
I've been in, my entire life, I've been in 5. I'd probably say like the craziest fight I've ever been in would have to be, I had a friend back in grade school and he had this little brother who was getting picked on. So I kind of try to come in and just be like, hey, I'll kick your ass if you threaten to kick his ass again. That kid had an older brother and 2 other friends who were just like, oh, well, you know what, we'll fight you. I'm like, well, the 4 of you, like, it's not that really fair. Mm-hmm. So, like, one day after school, walking home, I was actually with my friend and his brother. So, like, they show up and they start wanting to fight. I look over to both of my friend and his brother and like, no, we want nothing to do with this. I'm like, well, thanks. I tried to help you out. You're not going to help me out. So, I don't know. It was kids. It was like we were fighting, me versus the 4 of them. I was doing surprisingly well at the time.
How old were you?
This was back in I'd probably say grade 6 or 7.
Okay.
I'd have to throw that out there. But, so all of a sudden, 2 of them start picking up these big branches on the ground. And then they start wailing me with them. And then, yeah, it was not fun. But you know what? I kind of took that as like a hint of pride where I'm like, it took 4 guys to have to use sticks to beat me in a fight. So I'm cool with that.
What happened after?
As embarrassing as it is, if you're getting hit by a bunch of trees, I started crying.
Oh.
But I was a kid and I was just like, this hurts like hell, like holy crap. So, obviously, some people walked by, informed some adults and all that.
Oh, okay.
We all got, I don't know if I got suspended because they kind of like were more lenient toward me because it was 1 on 4.
Yeah, exactly.
But we all still got in trouble and all that, but they got the worst end of it, so.
Okay. I guess you were bruised pretty badly. Hey. Oh, that's crazy. Like, did you limp home?
Actually, it was more of a kind of just sit there for like 5-10 minutes, just like, oh my god, and then I was just like, okay, alright, I'm feeling okay, and then I kind of just walked up. Thankfully, at that point, I was like 2 minutes away from my house, so.
Oh, that's good.
So I wasn't too far away.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Nuts. Okay. So, what's the craziest thing that has ever happened to you? Yeah.
So, alright, so the craziest thing that's ever happened to me, it was 4 or 5 years ago. It was St. Paddy's Day. So right away, you know, it's going to be an interesting story. We had just gotten back from the college. There was a Sum 41 concert.
Oh, awesome.
So I was with my one friend. We went to a party. He brought 2 Mickeys of, it was rum. Yeah, I think rum. Yeah. So flash forward like an hour, 2 hours into it. He's already finished 1 Mickey already.
Okay.
So he's really far gone. So at this point, we're hanging out on the porch, and then he kind of like goes to fall back and smashes his arm through the glass door on the porch. So like he cuts open his arm, and at this point he can't speak English. He's going like, he's like making like fart noises with his mouth.
Okay.
And he's like bleeding. So my one friend brings him in to like their bathroom, and like he's like throwing, like he starts throwing up a bit, like there's blood everywhere. So they start to call an ambulance. At this exact same time, another friend of mine, while it's all going on, is just like, I'm gonna go for a walk. And so he just disappeared for a while. So we're just like, what the hell is going on? So he's bleeding. The ambulance comes, and then alright, as the ambulance is coming, the weirdest thing happens. Okay. His girlfriend at the time shows up. So here's the thing. She knew he was at a party.
Yeah.
She knew none of us. Didn't know the person who like lived at that house.
Yeah.
He didn't tell her where it was. Mm-hmm. So she just showed up with another guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So shows up with like another guy, just like magically at the exact time. So
while he's leaving the
while he's like he's bleeding.
He's still bleeding.
Like the ambulance hasn't gone there yet.
Okay.
Ambulance hasn't gone there yet. So he's bleeding, and then the ambulance comes in. This whole time too, his phone was missing. He like whipped it. He was just like, I don't want to talk to her anymore. So he whips the phone, and then like we found it the next day. But so ambulance comes, and then two attractive female ambulance drivers happen to be working the night. Mm-hmm. So they start like putting him on like the gurney or the stretcher, and then he starts flirting with the two ambulance drivers as he's bleeding. He's got puke on him, and his girlfriend is standing right there next to him.
Okay. So, with the guy?
At this point the guy left.
Oh, okay. He's awkward.
He's just like, I want nothing to do with this. Yeah. So at that point he left, and he's just making, I still make fun of him for it to this day. He's just like the stupidest after stupidest things, like the entire night. He's just like flirting with other girls in front of his girlfriend, covered in puke, like smashed his arm, blood. And then the funniest part was he doesn't remember any of it except for waking up in the hospital next morning with his dad standing there, who's a police officer, going, "You're an idiot." So I think that was probably the craziest thing that ever happened to me, because in a situation like that, you're like, what the hell do I do?
Yeah, like all these things are going on, and you're like,
It's just like one thing after another, and it's just crazy.
Okay.
Just crazy.
Okay. So my last question is, what's the craziest thing that you've ever done in your life?
To be honest, craziest thing I've ever done in my life would have to be the first time I did comedy, because it's honestly, it's so true, just because I've always been the kind of guy who's not very like vocal, who's not very out there and all that. I'm definitely an introvert for sure when it comes to my personality. And like even in grade school and high school, if there's ever like the speech assignments, just going up there and having to do a speech, I'd always get incredibly nervous, and like I'd get stressed out. But then when it came to doing comedy, there was just this kind of feeling of just, you can say almost whatever you want to say. Like there are examples where like if you say like the N-word, you say stuff like that, like that's off limits. But for the most part, like a lot of my stuff tends to be dark and like dirty. Yeah. And usually it just goes because just like people understand it's comedy, that it's all for the sake of making someone laugh. So definitely the craziest thing I've ever done was getting up on the stage for the first time with jokes I put together in 24 hours in front of like 7 of my closest friends.
Oh, wow.
20 random people I'd never met before, and just actually being up there and telling those jokes. Yeah,
that's actually really funny, because last week when I interviewed Robert, he said the same thing.
Oh, really?
And my first podcast was actually what I said for my craziest thing that I've ever done in my life. The latest one was comedy well. Because it's just nuts when you're actually on stage and you're like, just, I don't know, like everyone around you and everything, you're like, I'm actually going up on stage trying jokes that I don't even know if are that funny. Like I did a set one time for some friends on Skype, and none of them laughed. Like, And, like, there was, like, a long pause, and then I was like, I guess that wasn't funny at all. They're like, there was no punchline, and I was like, oh, yeah. Anyway, so.
Well, that's the beauty of comedy. It's like,
mm-hmm.
you can have, like, incredible shows, you can have terrible, terrible shows, but it's all a learning experience. You learn the most from when you bomb. Like, that is, like, all the shows where I've bombed, I've learned a lot from it and all that. And it's really different compared to, like, musicians and all that. Like, you're going up there by yourself. There's no band members backing you up. There's no guaranteed hits. It's like you're delivering these jokes that you've developed, you've been trying out in an effort to try to make people laugh.
Yeah.
Because, like, with music, like, even if a crowd's just, like, being quiet, like, that's good because, like, they're listening to your music. Mm-hmm. With comedy, they're being quiet. They're not laughing at what you have to say, and then you're not really doing that good at comedy. So.
Yeah. I remember one time I went to Detroit with Robert, and when I did my set, there was, like, this one guy, and it was for everybody in the bar was all comedians, and he said that that's probably the best experience for a comedian to just present his act in front of comedians, because then if you can get them to laugh, then you know that it's a good set. And I just remember this one guy in the corner, and he was just trying to be encouraging to me because he kept laughing at everything I said. But, like, the room was, like, entirely silent, and I was like, this is so nerve-wracking. It was crazy. But in a way, it was just kind of fun and, like, enthralling to be up on stage, even if you suck. It's just kind of, like, it's still kind of fun. I don't know.
It inspires you in a way. It makes you want to do better.
But what you were saying earlier about, like, doing presentations in front of classmates and things like that, I get, like, so nervous, too. And one time in 7th grade, I had to read something in front of the class and present my project, and I was so nervous that I was shaking, and then I couldn't read it because I was shaking so much I couldn't read the words because it was all blurry, and it was just, and, like, even just doing these podcasts right now, it's still, like, trying to get the flow of things too, to be on film.
Because that's the thing, like, with podcasts and with presentations, like, podcasts, it's a little more better, but, like, you're not truly being yourself, like, because, like, say, like, in an interview situation like this, there are the rules you got to go by, like, in the sense that you're delivering these questions, but, like, you're still bringing your personality into, like, the discussion, but, like, it's not, like, where you're just free to just be like, oh, that weather, it's all, like, you always kind of, like, stress out, like, am I going to remember the one question I got to ask? Am I going to say it right? Am I going to do something to offend somebody? It's always just, like, that's what always got me, was the thought of, how am I going to mess this up?
Oh, okay.
Which is something that still happens to comedy, too. Like, how am I going to mess this up? But I've become comfortable enough with my jokes and my delivery that I don't stress about it as much, so.
Okay, cool. So, as a plug, you're going to be doing a show tomorrow night on Tuesday?
Yep, tomorrow at Craft Head Brewery. Comedy, actually, what's the name of it?
Craft Heads.
Craft Heads. But the name of the event, I'm blanking on it right now. It's the open mic they do every other week on Tuesdays. I'll be doing that. And then Wednesday, I've got a show I'm putting together at the Legion. It's a dark comedy show.
Oh, okay.
So, which I'm very happy for. It's something I think Windsor definitely could use right now as just an absolute dark comedy. I got somebody coming from the States, a really great dark comedian. He'll be headlining that night, and
what's his name?
His name is Drew Campbell.
Okay.
Yeah, Drew Campbell.
Oh, that's awesome.
He'll be headlining that night, and I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. And I've been to a lot of those shows too, so I definitely recommend going to the Robert shows, which are the pay what you can for students. There's Milk too. Some comedians do.
Basically goes one Tuesday is Milk, the open mic, and then the next Tuesday it's Craft Heads. So this week is Craft Heads, then the week after that would be Milk, and then so on, just alternating.
Cool. Yeah. So come out and support your local comedians. Have a time. Thanks, Chris, for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. All right, so that's it for Humanity Unlocked, and I'll see you guys next time.